Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Ernie.
and this is Budget Nerds.
It was all in your mind.
You are not alone.
No, you are not. Well, today, Ernie, we're going to talk about impulse spending. And specifically, we're going to talk about how little things add up to big things. And we did a study. Like we're a fancy organization who commissions studies now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got the press release right here.
Actual piece of paper. I mean, yeah, you're so right, Ernie. You got it. Wait, so you had to use some of your precious printer ink to print this out?
Well, we got that new printer now, so I can print as much as I want, and I don't have to worry.
You don't have to worry about it. What kind of printer was that? I need to.
It was an Epson something.
But it's like not toner. I don't know how.
Yeah, the toner lasts basically forever.
Okay. I need that because my printer is not working right now because I can't be bothered to go buy printer ink. It's been like that for months. So
yeah, I could have printed off, 20,000 of these studies for every employee at YNAB and still have half the ink left.
Okay, we're going to talk about this after. All right. I know we've talked about this on Budget Nerds before, how much we hate printers and how you solved the problem.
This is going to be your next impulse spend right here. Epson
Here
printer.
it is. Yes, I'm going to buy one right now because I never think about things too much. Yes, for sure. All right, what are we talking about? Tell us about this study, Ernie. What's the deal?
So we did this study just asking folks, well, specifically asking Americans what the deal is with impulse spending. Do they partake in it? What kind of impact it has on their finances? And I think this is in response to that little treat culture that's going on TikTok, or that folks tell me is going on in TikTok, because I'm not over there. But
yeah, the kids these days, talking about stuff. Yeah, little treats, right? I mean, the title of the release is From Little Treats to Trouble. New study exposes the hidden financial impact of impulsive small-scale spending.
Dun, dun, dun.
It sounds kind of spooky, right?
So, yeah, it's this interesting thing going on, and we just thought we would dive into it. But right off the bat, 94% of Americans admit to spending impulsively from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking small-scale purchases here.
Yeah, not like fancy printers.
Well, I mean, maybe you could throw fancy printers in that, but not impulse buying a car, during your lunch at work or something like that.
Okay, so we got the scale down here, right? We're talking about.
And I don't know what the dollar, it probably is relative to everyone else. I mean, to me, impulse spending, small scale, I'm thinking like $5 to $20. I'm pretty cheap though.
That feels good to me too, but I'm also pretty cheap. I want to know about that other 6% of Americans who say, nope,
I'm
never
all good.
once, never have impulse spent anything ever. Because it is a pretty fraud question. I think, it's kind of one of those questions where it's like, everybody's going to say yes to this. And you got 94% say from time to time they impulse spend. But 6% of Americans are like, no, I've never once spent on a whim ever in my entire life. So good for you. I guess those were the YNABers that they studied. I don't know.
We know YNABers impulse spend. They plan for it.
Yeah,
right?
And I think that's what I want to talk about today. But we should get into, because this study got into the details, like why does this happen? What are the reasons why people spend on an impulse without thinking about it? And some really interesting things came out. Some things that were not surprising that we'll talk about.
Yeah,
and some interesting things too.
The one that wasn't surprising to me and what I identified with was emotional fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
If I've had or I'm having a bad day, I want to get a little treat, right? I want to do something to make that day a little bit better. Or we go to the other end. If it's been a really good day, maybe I killed it at work or something, or I don't know, good dad moment. I don't know, maybe I cut my lawn and it looks spectacular. Yeah, I want to reward myself. So
one of my favorite I'm tooting my own horn here, but I had a really great post. This is years ago, back during my social media days when I used to run YNAB social media. It's way better now that we have people that know what they're doing that. And I made a little meme. It's like a graph or something. Anyways, I don't remember what it was exactly, but the point was that I can always find a way to go out to eat or to get a little treat. And it's like this. It goes, if I had a bad day, let's make it a better day by going out to eat, right? And this is like me talking to my wife. That's the way I imagine it. Or if I had just an okay day, let's make it a good day by going out to eat. Or if I had a good day, let's celebrate by going out to eat. You know what I mean? So it's like, no matter what emotional state I'm in, whether it's bad or good or just meh, I need a little treat.
Yeah.
I can use that to justify it, right?
Absolutely. And the thing here is right away, I'm like, oh, this is bad. Like I internalize it. And I think if I respond emotionally to something, then I'm doing something wrong. But I just know that is not the case, right? That's just part of being human.
Yeah. I think with all of these, it's okay. It's just a question of, is it going to the extent where you're not financially healthy or you can't reach your financial goals as a result? You know?
Or are there certain patterns that are getting created that maybe aren't super healthy?
Exactly. And, we talk about little treats specifically. I feel like this is a thing, like just with health, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, every day you're having like a little something sweet, and it's like it adds up, and it reflects in your finance and reflects in your health. I mean, this is something I feel like I've been grappling with over the past like 10 years or something like that, where it's like, golly, eat ice cream like every day. And it's all about if you don't like pay attention to what you're doing. It's like, oh yeah, this could be every day, but it doesn't feel like that because your focus is more like on the very narrow living just in this one moment, not thinking about what I did yesterday or what I'm going to do in the future, and get yourself into trouble, right?
Yeah. So yeah, emotional fulfillment is one of those reasons why we indulge in those little treats. Another one is FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah. What's an example of like when you spent money because you didn't want to miss out on something? I mean, I can think of 1,000.
I was hoping you would come up with something here because I was thinking, I don't know. That one really doesn't resonate with me.
I mean, it's just if your friends are doing something and like the barrier to entry is spending money, like we hear about this all the time where people are like, oh, all my friends want to go to the bar or go out to eat, and where they want to hang out in places that require spending money.
Okay.
And people are like, if I limit my dining out spending, I'm going to like lose those friendships. It feels like sometimes, so I think that's a huge thing. It's like kind of following the crowd. And it is a problem, I think, for a lot of folks, especially younger folks, where it's like, yeah, I don't want to say no too often or I'm going to stop getting invited. And I think that's the fear,
Okay. So just hearing you talk through those examples, I feel that with family stuff quite a bit, like with our boys. So teenagers, I mean, we have one who's a senior this year. They could be out of the house, kind of living their own life within a year now. And so you look around and you see what all these other families are doing, the experiences they're making, trips.
That's a great example.
And you're like, oh, am I depriving my kids of these things or these experiences?
I feel that so much because I got younger kids, right? And my question is like, should I put them in sports and should I put them in all these extracurriculars? And I'm like, I just don't want to be one of those families that's like all our time is spent driving around and we never get to have a meal together because I have 4 kids in different sports. And I have to carry them all around town, But I feel like, exactly what you said. Am I depriving them of some kind of experience by not having them play soccer and do all that stuff?
And then the impulse spending pops up when you get that flyer for a soccer camp. It's only $100, for a weekend or something. Oh, let's do it. And before you know it, you're doing that all the time and spending hundreds, thousands of dollars on these things. You're like, oh, geez, I don't know if that was really a priority.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with those things, but it's just like, am I doing them for the right reasons? Am I doing them because I actually think it's good, or am I doing it just because everybody else is doing it and I feel like I'm going to be judged if I don't? I mean, oh gosh, I mean, there's so much parenting guilt. You know what I mean? It's a huge thing. But I hear you with the vacations, especially like for you with your teenagers. You know, they're getting older, and you're like probably counting the summers you have left, right?
Yeah.
Before they move on. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you feel like you you can easily be like, we got to do something big, like go to Disney World or something like that, right?
Okay. Or even doing something small, because this weekend we went to the apple orchard, and my mom and dad were there, my brother, nephew. So it was a big family outing. And I was like, the thought dawned on me. So Charlie is our senior. I was like, boy, this could be our last kind of apple orchard hurrah as this kind of, family dynamic right now, because maybe he's off at college, isn't able to come back next fall, whatever the case may be. So I was like, I was wanting almost to spend money. Like, let's get 2 gallons of apple
You get the
cider.
full bushel.
Right. Just go overboard on apples, right? Totally feeling that need or that want to spend money.
Yeah, it's funny when you go to the apple orchard. There's like you get the peck, or you get like the quarter peck or the half peck. Is that how it works at your apple orchard?
Yep,
You got like the little bags.
Yep.
And like I always get a quarter peck, but I get 3 of them because my oldest 3 kids. Yeah, I got a toddler, so he doesn't care. But like they have to have their own bags, or it's going to be a disaster. And it's way more money. Like I could get like a peck for cheaper than I could get for 3 quarter pecks. Peck is a weird word. Anyway.
Especially when you say it over and over and over.
I know, right? Anyways, but you got to get the separate bags for them so they can each have their own. And they give me like this tiny bag. It's like the tiniest thing ever, but it holds a lot of apples. But anyways, sorry, that was my sidetrack on that. So you feel like you went overboard on the apple orchard this time around?
I did. And boy, as we boil it down, it comes back to that fear of missing out. That turned out to be a bigger one than I thought. So, okay, we unpacked that one. Another reason for impulse spending, dining out.
I think this is a slam dunk, right?
Right. Absolutely.
You ask anybody, how did you get out of debt? Like, what did you do? I'm going to venture to say 99.987% of the time they'll say, oh, we cut dining out, right? That's like the thing to cut back on it to reach a financial goal. It's the thing that we feel like we spend more money on than anything else.
When I find it, the biggest urge to spend impulsively on dining out is when someone in the family is gone. Because as a unit of 5, it is so expensive. And so honestly, I'm never even considering it unless it's our usual Friday evening dining out. But, we've had, actually all 3 of my boys have jobs now.
Okay.
And so there are evenings where it's just 4 of us or 3 of us. And in those moments, I'm like, we got to eat out. Right? Like there's something different.
This is the moment. It's going to be cheaper.
It's going to be so much cheaper. Like, I'm running the numbers in my head, looking at the budget. Like, let's just do this, right? I know I had this meal plan, but let's impulsively dine out. Yeah, that gets me. A lot of times, at least recently, I've given in.
Right.
So
are one of the boys upset when they're working and they miss the elusive dining out, or
no, because they get free food.
Oh, sure.
Where they're working. So they're taken care of.
So they're getting dining out. I mean,
right.
So they're all working like in food service stuff. So they eat there. I could totally see that. Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. And that's also kind of a FOMO thing. It's like if we had let this opportunity pass by,
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is also really tied to emotional fulfillment. Like me, and food, it's like I said, if you're feeling down, you want to get something out to eat because you like more salt and butter solves all problems, right? Temporarily, so it's really tied to that for me too. But yeah, dining out's just absolutely the biggest thing for sure.
And I remember, back when I started YNAB, this is when the boys were really young. I really wasn't in a groove with meal planning. And so we would have all these school activities and these sports activities. And afterwards, because they always came in the evening, it was 6, 7 o'clock. What are we going to do for supper? And that's when we were always tempted to spend impulsively because...
Well, that's so tough.
I don't have anything at home. I don't want to go to the store and pick up ingredients or think through what we need to buy. So we would just pick up drive-through,
I mean, even if you do have a plan, it can be... If you're running around away from the house, like it can be so hard. It's the convenience, But
I found once I got in that groove of meal planning, it was so much easier to stick to. And it's almost like the family just knew we have a meal waiting for us at home. Like this is just what we do. Even if it's a late night, there's something at home. We can put it together quick. Good to go.
Yeah. So you kind of you shifted the paradigm to where like the default is dining out to the default is doing something at home. And it'd be a special thing to go out to eat, which you do every Friday.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. This is one that I never thought of that came out of this study, seasonal influences. This is one of the biggest reasons that came up when we asked people about, when we asked people, why do they impulse spend on little things? Rolling into the holiday season right now.
I got stats, Ben.
Tell us the stats, Ernie. Tell us the stats.
68% of Americans say they are more inclined to spend impulsively during the holiday season,
which is October to December officially. So that's a lot. And I'm looking at those other 32%, and I'm like, you lying? But yeah, I'm sure there are. But yeah, it's just in the air, like. Literally, there's like music in the air that's like short wires your brain to like go spend money.
I know.
It's a thing.
I saw like 12 Old Navy Christmas commercials, holiday commercials last night during the Monday Night Football game. It's like, geez, here we go.
Yeah. It's like smells and sounds and like the feel of the air. It starts getting colder. You're like, it's time to start buying stuff. I think it's like our mammal brain, like burrowing kind of thing. Like it gets cold and we're like, let's get a bunch of stuff around us and let's burrow in our holes.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean? I think there's something like that going on. And then also marketing.
Definitely marketing. But I feel this one. I mean, I don't do a whole lot of the shopping, the holiday shopping anymore. Christy takes care of most of that. But back in the day, especially when the kids were really young, we would take days off of work, get a babysitter, and go out and do that ourselves. And we'd go into Target and each get a Starbucks, walk around the store casually, picking out presents, enjoying that Starbucks. We'd go out to eat then. Like there were all of these little treats, these impulse purchases, around that Christmas shopping. It is a vibe.
When we say it's a vibe, like I think literally it's like a chain of events. Like it's cold outside, so we're going to go inside. We're going to get a hot drink, pay money for that. We have the hot drink. We're feeling cozy. We're going to get more cozy things. We want to feel good. We go out to eat. It's like this whole like chain, and I think it's by design in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's huge. And also, I think there's a thing where if you're buying gifts for other people, you get into this like spendy mode. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I'm spending all this money. I'm like you start comparing. You're like, oh, I just spent like $200 on gifts for people. If I bought this $20 thing, it doesn't really make a difference because I'm just spending $220. We do these like these math fallacies in our heads. Where like if you're already spending money, it's the inertia.
Yeah.
So if you're already spending money, then you spend more, and it can get away from you because it can be a lot of little things, like we're saying.
So those are the top 4 reasons for impulse spending: emotional fulfillment, FOMO, dining out, seasonal influences.
So what's the solution, Ernie? How do we solve this thing that we do? Like, how do we solve this impulse spending thing?
Ben, I'm going to quote a money and lifestyle expert.
Oh, okay.
I don't think we've ever done that on the show.
All right.
So this is from money and lifestyle expert Ashley Lopato.
Who is that? I don't know who that is. I've never met her in my life.
Ashley of the Organized Wallet. I love this. Ashley says, it's important to spend money on things that bring joy and align with your goals and priorities. The solution isn't to stop the impulse spending. It's make a plan for it, right? Engage in it if it brings you joy. And as long as you are reaching your other financial goals, and we'll get more into this later, totally okay.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these things I don't want to stop, Like, I don't want to, the whole vibe of the holiday season, I don't want to lose that. Like, that's great. But it needs limits, not because I'm beating myself up, but it needs limits because I have financial goals. I have things I want to make. And because there are lots of small little things, it can be really easy to lose track if you're not paying attention, because they add up really quick and all of a sudden you're in debt or you're not able to reach your financial goals. And it just leads to this frustrating cycle. So don't try and stop it. I mean, you can't.
No.
Here's the deal. Yeah. I don't think you think it's possible, right?
And later on in this study, Jesse Meekum, founder of YNAB, he says, I don't want to live in a world where spending money isn't fun. I don't want to live in that world either. I mean, life is too short.
Right. So it's not about like just willpower, grit your teeth, stop it from happening. It's just about putting in processes to help yourself pay attention and set limits, right?
Yeah, and this is where I think YNAB shines.
Absolutely.
Because you're able to consider everything at once. And for me, it all comes back to rule 2, embrace your true expenses. So as the money's coming in, yes, you're setting it aside for the monthly bills, but you're also setting it aside for those things that are coming down that spending pipeline. Right? It's June, but I'm going to set a little bit aside for Christmas right now, a little bit aside for the car repairs, because then I can build in this margin of fun spending, for impulse spending. I can give Christy a certain amount of fun money every single month because we know we've got all that other stuff covered. So it doesn't matter if we blow a certain amount of money every single month.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, there's a blog that I think about all the time. I think it's actually I wrote it. It's the blog. To my own horn here a little bit. Okay, this is like a 5-year-old blog. I'm pretty sure it's the first blog I ever wrote for YNAB. I'm pretty sure.
Wow, it was a good piece of writing. I read it before the show. I liked it.
Oh, it's just an idea, and I love it. So the original title, I think we changed it for SEO. Right now, the title is "How to Make Your Budget More Fun" or something like that, right? And that's something that people are searching. But the original title was "Spontaneity: Plan Yours Today," and that's the one that's near and dear to my heart because it's funny, like. You can be spontaneous, but just plan it. And I know that's like an oxymoron, but it's about having these categories where you're like, okay, this is how much I'm going to spend on this. And then just like off the cuff, just like spend money on things where it's dining out or just general shopping, like fun money. I even talked about my compassion category, which I've talked about on Budget Nerds before, where it's like random acts of kindness, right? And then so long as you're tracking that, you are being aware of the spending. And then you can make sure it doesn't get out of control and you don't have all that stress around it. Because it's not really about stopping the impulse spending. It's stopping all the stress around impulse spending.
Yeah.
That's what we're after, right?
Well, I remember pre-YNAB, the focus for me was stop the impulse spending. Because it seemed like every time I spent money, it got me into trouble. Go out to eat with friends on a whim. Oh, shoot, we needed that money for the water bill 2 weeks later, and I didn't realize it at the time. So, okay, let's go a little bit more into credit card debt or, delay our savings goals, whatever the case may be. So, yeah, pre-YNAB, man, there was a lot of guilt around that impulse spending. But now the script has been flipped. I'm aware of everything. I'm being proactive. I see the full picture. So when the impulse spending comes up, it's just like, oh, well, no big deal. I just roll with the punches. We'll change the plan a little bit and move on.
Yeah. So the impulse spending didn't stop, but the stress did.
Yeah.
And that's what we're after here.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you aren't using YNAB, or even if you are, this is what you need to do. Go create categories for these things. Create categories for dining out. If it's a FOMO thing, create categories for spending time with friends. Create categories for convenience and seasonal spending, whatever it is that you feel like you want to get a handle on. Set a limit on that by actually setting money aside in that category for those things, and then track any spending that you do, and just watch the stress go away, because you'll know you're doing it within a limit and you can still reach other financial goals because you planned all of your spending all at once. And you can still be spontaneous. You just got to plan for it, right?
Okay. What about those YNABers who they've been YNABing for years, months? They've got their tidy, neat and organized categories that they assign money to every single month for fun, and they're overspending in those areas. They're overspending in dining out, the personal fun money category. Maybe there's a family fun category, or the trips and vacations category, whatever the case may be. Like, there's some overspending because of impulsivity. How do we deal with that? How do we approach it?
Well, rule 3, Ernie. It's all my personal favorite YNAB rule. Roll with the punches. Move some money from another more impulsive-y category that doesn't matter to you as much, and cover that overspending, or even do it ahead of time. You know, pay attention, look at your categories beforehand.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at here, I'm curious, and I should just flat out ask this: is there still that guilt there?
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like, sure, we are being proactive, we are planning. But it doesn't make us immune, I think, to the guilt from impulse spending if it goes a little bit overboard, or maybe a lot overboard.
Yeah. I think that guilt can have a good purpose for like a second. The problem is when you feel guilty and you also feel powerless. You know what I mean? Like, if I feel guilty and I'm like, okay, I feel guilty about this, I shouldn't have done this, I'm going to change my plan and adjust, and also pay attention by tracking that spending and making different decisions in the future, right? If I can actually do something about it, I only need to feel guilty for a second, and then I've responded, and I can actually make a different plan and actually change my behavior, right? When it becomes really unhealthy is when I feel guilty and I'm wallowing in that guilt because I also don't know what to do to fix it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you don't have YNAB, I don't think you can do it. You know, you can't really change the behavior because you don't have awareness, right?
Yeah, and that's what I've found in my own personal life, is being able to respond to that negative emotion. So I think, even to, back it up a little bit, something Jesse's been saying a lot on his podcast is, hey, if you're hitting your big financial goals, like savings, investing, giving, things like that, just don't sweat all the small stuff. And so I've had to tell myself that numerous times, right? Because I'm looking at these category balances, I'm going like, okay, we're fine, right? We have money, we can pay the bills, have shelter. None of that is going away. I think what is going on when there's that overspending, even in this comprehensive plan, and it's the impulse overspending I'm talking about, I know that I'm taking away from these other savings priorities, right? There's not enough money in, or not enough. I would like to have more of a cushion in auto maintenance or home repair or that job loss or emergency. So again, not that, I'm spending money that I shouldn't be, but it's just when I place that impulse spending against all these other priorities, I'm like, I don't want to spend that money, but if I do, it really isn't a big deal.
Right. Yeah, and you can almost get to a point where it's like, you're gonna, okay, I've been using YNAB 10 years. There's never been a single month where I haven't had overspending, and not just overspending because like something happened unexpected, but overspending because of impulse spending, right? It's not gonna go away. It's just part of who we are. But But because I can actually do something about it, I can look at my plan and be like, okay, yes, I overspent in this. Is it actually affecting my big financial goals? Like, am I able to get out of debt if I want to do that? Am I able to save for remodeling the bathroom? Or am I able to save money for retirement? And I look at it and say, yes, I'm still doing those big items. Don't sweat it. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's the key. Like, okay, sure, I maybe overspent $20 in dining out again, right?
Or 100, 150.
Or 100 or 300, like that might happen. And there is a thing where it's like, if you're consistently overspending in a particular area, it might be that you're just not setting enough money. You're not being realistic, right? Because the plan needs to be realistic too. So that might be a signal that says, hey, I do need to cut back in some of these other areas in order to put more, because clearly I value dining out or whatever it is more than other things. I mean, I remember I did this, years ago. We cut the dining out category, like, as far as the amount that we were putting in there every month, by a whole lot, in order to do, we were giving more money to our church because we were building a building and we're doing all these other things we wanted to do. Right. So we like slashed it. And then every single month we massively overspent in dining out because we didn't really change our behavior as a result. And I was like, I feel like every month I was like banging my head against the wall. Like, how can I fix this? Because the truth is, I want to spend less money, but I still want to eat out as much as I did, and I think what it is I needed to realize, hey, this is actually something that I value. I value the food, and I value the time with Caitlin, and time with kids and with friends, in this special way where we're going out to eat. And I realized, you know what? Because I value this, we actually just need to increase this category. And we took some money away from other things, still able to give as much as we wanted to. So the big ticket item didn't change. Other things changed that I didn't value as much in order to make way for the thing I did value, which was dining out. And I don't need to feel guilty about that,
Yeah.
So that's huge.
Yeah. And I keep thinking, boy, I think a lot of successful YNABers, when the overspending happens, they keep coming back to the plan. And even if it doesn't feel good necessarily looking at the overspending, they adjust and they just keep moving forward because there's these other big high-level financial goals that are guiding them.
Right.
And I'm just thinking of a lot of folks who they try to make some sort of spending plan, and they overspend and they just quit right away. I mean, I remember feeling that with my spreadsheet. I would still come back and do it the next month, but once there was overspending, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to track the numbers for the rest of the month.
Right.
We'll
it's
try
really
harder.
easy to just, when it looks ugly, you're like, I'm just going to avoid it. Right.
Yeah. And so if you can get yourself to face that reality, just stare it in the face, here's the overspending, acknowledge it, know that it's not bad morally, and then you just adjust and you move on, I've found I do end up feeling better, right?
Yeah.
Just by readjusting that plan and then working with it going forward.
We're talking a lot about make sure that your big goals are okay, that they're protected. And I think for a lot of people, it might be like, I don't really have those big goals, but they might have a general sense of, I feel like I spend too much money on dining out or on groceries or whatever it is. But they don't really have like a reason. I think it's really hard to make a sacrifice to cut back in an area if you don't, like, you're never going to make a sacrifice if you don't have a reward for it as well. Right. And so I think maybe taking a step back and being like, okay, I'm overspending. Why am I overspending? Maybe it's because I don't have a big enough goal. I haven't taken a step back and be like, what do I really want? Like, what are the big things I want? And if you have some big things that you want to go after, it can help you control some of the other things, because when you actually do step into some of these chains of behaviors that are impulse spending, you can be aware, hey, if I do this, I can do it, but it's going to jeopardize this big goal that I know I really want. Then you actually might be able to say no to it. It might actually stop that behavior chain, So have something big if you don't, because I think it always helps.
Absolutely. Anything else, Ben? I feel
No, I
like we
think-
talked a lot longer about little treats than we originally thought we would, but that's always the case with us.
That's always the case. Eventually we start preaching, and that's how it goes. All right, let's do some YNAB wins.
Perfect.
It was all your mind.
All right, I have a YNAB win from Michaela, who wrote in and said, I've managed to get ahead enough that I can afford to take a couple weeks off between leaving my terrible job and starting a new one. I'm not a month ahead, but I am starting the month with most of my bills, spending, and savings accounted for. I love this one because it's not like a money win. It's not like, well, it is a money win, but it's not like strictly like, oh, I paid off this amount. It's like because I have cash, because I've saved, because I have a plan, I have freedom to quit, which sounds like Michaela wrote some more about why this job was terrible. It did sound like a bad situation, and she could just walk away from it and maybe even take a little time off before starting a new one. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Love that.
Congratulations. My win comes from JD. JD emailed us, Ben and Ernie. I just donated $8,000 to Partners in Health, a charity dedicated to, among other things, reducing child and maternal mortality in Sierra Leone. I set the goal many years ago to donate 10% of my income to highly effective charities, and I couldn't have done it without YNAB. YNAB helped me track my charity category over the course of the year so I could donate in January without stressing that it would impact the rest of my finances. It made it easy to feel like that money was already spent, even though it was still in my checking account, which is exactly what you want from a true expense like charity. Thanks, YNAB, for helping us help the world.
Love that.
Absolutely
That's so great.
fantastic.
Really wonderful cause there too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, just all about those priorities, right? Those high-level priorities. Get those taken care of, and don't worry about the rest. Love it.
Exactly. Just like what we're talking about today. All right. Well, if you have a YNAB win, you can leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or if you would rather, you can send us an email at budgetnerds@ynab.com.
And we would love to hear about your experience with little treats, about your experience with impulse spending. So send us an email, drop a comment in YouTube. Love to hear from you.
Oh, and if you want to see the study, like the press release, very fancy, link will be in our description to a blog, which is a little more YNAB, a little more friendly. And then in that blog, there'll be a link to the fancy press release that Ernie's been flapping around today, if you want to read that.
All right, friends, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Until then,
Happy YNABing.
happy YNABing.